Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Top Step F1 podcast. This is episode 2. And again, my name's Ash, and I'm joined by Dan.
Hello, mate.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. We just had our first race of the season, which I could certainly say lived up to the hype that we were expecting. How did you find the race, Dan?
As you say, I don't think I have any complaints for that race at all. Especially for a Bahrain Grand Prix, I think Bahrain Grand Prix aren't always great, but as a season opener, that was a near perfect race.
It was spicy, wasn't it? It was definitely something
Very spicy.
After all the hype that testing kind of brought in, especially with the look of the Red Bull. It's finally good to have Hamilton and Verstappen kind of racing wheel to wheel again.
We have a fight. We have a fight for a change. It's looking. I mean, we sort of knew that from qualifying, really, when Red Bull had what was it, like 4/10 advantage.
Yes,
It was looking pretty good from there, and it just the race had everything. It just had everything. We had some really good racing. We had a really good fight at the front, different strategies. Yeah, I don't think we could ask for more.
So it was very good. It was very good to see the midfield battles going on, as well as having Hamilton and Verstappen going at it at the front. Kind of a shame that Mercedes kind of missed their second pit stop with Bottas, obviously, but I still don't think he would have been up there with them. But yeah, no, I agree. It definitely had everything that we could have wanted, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. The one of the aspects that I found really entertaining was the just how competitive it was in the midfield. I mean, you'll remember that from the race we had what was it? We had Alpine, Ferrari, and Aston Martin 3 abreast going into turn 3, pretty much. And it was just great to see. It was just really close racing. The field was mixed up as well. It wasn't like we had just in constructor order like we have done for a number of seasons, where there's just not really been much mixing up. The performance is all quite close, so we're getting like a mix up of drivers as well. So it's just really, really good to see, and I really enjoyed that battle.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to see a. I think it was between. It was between Stroll, Alonso, and I think Sainz.
I think it was, yeah.
Memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And the other Sainz came out on top. It's good to see Alonso up there. I don't think that Alpine is a great car at all. Obviously, Ocon was unlucky and got hit by Vettel, but I still don't think he would have broken into the top 10. But it's just, it's good to see that Alonso back, and he's still got the speed there with that car, and also with a Ferrari as well. Obviously, they were having issues last year. I don't think they're anywhere near the top 2, but it's good to see them in the midfield. And they obviously they had a good result with Leclerc in 6th and Sainz in 8th. So it's definitely the step forward that they want to see.
Yeah, I was happy to see Ferrari doing a lot better. I think it's good for everybody that Ferrari are further up the field, because they should be towards the front. They're not quite there yet, of course, but the car looked pretty solid. They were pretty racy, and hopefully that's a bit of an upward trend and it carries on. I agree with you on the point about Alpine. It was a little bit disappointing. They looked actually fairly strong in testing, but they didn't really come through in the race. Alonso, though, still very, very good. Doesn't look like he's lost anything, and he even says himself that he's not actually at 100% himself yet. So we'll see more from him, I'm sure. You never know, we might see a bit of magic at some point. But yeah, unfortunate for Ocon, who got hit by Vettel, who just seemed to have a massive lock-up, and it was a little bit bizarre. It looked like I don't know about you, but it sort of seemed like it was one of those typical Vettel mistakes that we've seen for the last few years.
I think he, I think he changed his mind coming under braking, because obviously he
Yeah.
was to the right hand side going into the corner, and then he moved back over for the racing line, and obviously he would have lost downforce getting that close and just locked up. Um, so yeah, I don't know if he's enjoying the Aston. The Aston has definitely been hit by the loss of the rear downforce with the floor. Um, and obviously, I think they were talking about the rate change. Obviously, having a higher rate is more beneficial this year. And I think the Aston Martin's got one of the lowest rates on the grid, so they're definitely being hurt by that. But yeah, I agree. I think definitely think it was a all Vettel's mistake. Um, it was. I would like to say it was uncharacteristic, but again, like you say, over the past few years, we have seen a few mistakes like that. You kind of think, as a four-time world champion, you kind of would be over that now, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it's disappointing to see it. I honestly thought he'd sort of he'd perform better. I mean, obviously it's only one race; we've got a long way to go. But that Aston is not going to be easy to drive all season long because they're not gonna change that design philosophy now, especially with the reg changes for next year. They look like the ones that have been hit the most. Mercedes have obviously been hit by it quite heavily as well, but they seem to have been able to at least recover some of that compared to say Aston. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but these regulation changes that we get every so often, they do tend to affect some cars more than others. And unfortunately for Vettel and Stroll as well, they've been hit the hardest, and it's gonna be a painful year for him, I think.
Do you think he will be able to adapt with how the Aston drives, or do you think it'll just be one of those? I think this year for especially for like Haas, it's kind of wipe the slate clean because everything starts again next year.
I think I think Vettel's shown that he cannot adapt his driving to a car. I think we saw that at Red Bull when he was up against Ricciardo before he left. We've seen it at Ferrari when the car suited Leclerc more. And I would not be surprised if he just struggles all season long. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think he's the type of driver that can sort of drive around an issue. He's not like Alonso, Lewis, and Verstappen who can just do that. They seem to be able to just extract the speed out of anything. Vettel doesn't seem very much like that. He needs the car to sort of feel right, a particular
Yeah.
way. A bit like how Jensen used to be as well. Jensen Button, he when he was at McLaren, he often struggled unless he got the setup exactly how he wanted it. Whereas Lewis was able to sort of get the speed out of it pretty much all the time. So I think I do think he's gonna really struggle this year. But then we get to next year, and Aston are pouring all these funds in. We might see a much better car from them, and we might also get a much better Sebastian Vettel. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't want to judge him necessarily on this year, but I imagine a lot of
Hmm.
people will. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think I do think you're right with how he struggles to adapt to a car if it doesn't suit his driving style. Um, I do think this year will be a lot of learning, especially with how Aston work now that they've got those funds coming in, and obviously moving into next year when all the regs change. It'd be interesting to see how he does measure up against Stroll this year. Um, you know, Stroll's slowly maturing a bit as an F1 driver. I still don't think he's got the raw pace of a lot of people on the grid, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how those two measure up against each other, how the year goes on.
Yeah.
But it's looking good for Stroll at the moment, based off the one race.
Yeah, he handled it a lot better. A lot better. I don't know if that's because he's a more adaptable driver, or if he's just used to the style of the car, because it's still gonna have a similar it's still gonna have similar characteristics to last year. And he's used to the power unit as well. But
Mm,
he's had some good performances over the years. Even the time at Williams and that as well. So
yeah,
I can't weigh up Stroll completely yet, but I think him up against Sebastian Vettel will make him look a lot better than it will Sebastian.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. Again, it's still only the first race of the season, so can't put all our
Yeah,
eggs in one basket
yeah,
just yet.
exactly. We're basing it all off of one
So
race so far.
yeah, exactly. So my driver of the day, Perez, uh,
I
did
agree.
an
I'm
awesome job.
I'm with you on that as well. I totally agree.
Moving on. So he definitely had an impact that I think Red Bull wanted, especially after the issue he had going to the grid and having to start from the pit lane. Um, yeah, I can't say I wasn't impressed. Yourself?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he handled it very, very well at the start. I mean, that was full on disaster mode for a minute, and even having to start from the pit lane. I mean, that's not ideal at all. I mean, all those places he lost with that. You imagine where he would have finished if he'd started where he was supposed to start. Yeah, it was a very, very strong drive, a very strong drive, and I think that's exactly what Red Bull need. And I think
I do think they.
he will be very, very happy because he's got a car that right now he thinks is the fastest car, and he knows this is his chance.
Yeah,
And I think that we'll get fireworks with him and Max if he can just stick with him in qualifying. I think there's gonna be some fireworks.
I do. I agree. I do think they finally have what they were looking for in Albon, in the wingman that Verstappen needs in Perez. Um, Obviously, the issue with Albon was consistency. Um,
Yeah,
he just couldn't get the one lap pace to get up there to have an impact during the race. When he was up there during the race, he was able to deliver, unless he got hit by Hamilton. Yeah, but
yeah, true, true. But do you
I do
but do you
think
do you
over the
see
long run,
Perez though? Do you see Perez as a
mm,
wingman? This is the thing that I
at the at,
go on.
at the moment I do, while he's learning the intricacies of how Red Bull work and how the car works. Next year, when it's a clean slate, no. Next year, slate's wiped clean, brand new rule, brand new regulations coming in. Nobody knows how these cars are gonna run. It's basically it's going to be every driver for themselves. There's not going to be a number one and number two, um, unless obviously the first couple of races will kind of whittle that out a little bit. But no one's going to know how quick they are until these cars hit the track. So I think for this year, I think if he gets up to speed really quickly, I think he could be a pain in the side for Red Bull, because I don't think he will play second fiddle to Verstappen. It
No.
all depends how quickly he gets up to speed.
So you don't think he's really going to challenge Verstappen this year then?
I think he will. I hope he does. I want him to. Um, I don't think it will happen for another 2-3 races minimum yet. I think that Red Bull is so different from the Racing Point he drove for so many years. Um, it's breaking those nuances and those habits that worked that won't work with the Red Bull, and it's just how quick is he to adapting to that. Um, but the first race in Bahrain, he showed speed. Um, he only finished 6 seconds off of Norris
Yeah.
from starting at the back of the grid. So it was a good start. So hopefully that Red Bull stays reliable. We know what Red Bull can be like. It's not the most kindest car
Yeah.
out there.
I mean that. I mean, it was a bit of a blip there at the start for him, but they seem to be fairly reliable. Otherwise, they don't seem to have had many issues.
I think most of the
So
cars now are pretty bulletproof.
yeah, it's not like the old days. But
No,
I yeah, I'm expecting him to do really well this year. I'm still, I still sort of think he will beat Bottas in terms of the drivers' championship,
yeah.
and we'll see what else he does. But I think within 2-3 races, I think he's going to be right up there, and I think he will be pushing very very hard because he might just think that this could be his only chance if the car is the best, and he knows the regulation changes coming in next year. He might just think, throw caution to the wind and just go for it.
Hmm. Yeah, I
But we'll
do.
see.
I do think it's going to be interesting to see how he does against Bottas.
Yes,
That's the. I do think. I do think Perez will have the pace of Verstappen. Uh, the first hurdle is you've got the Hamilton Verstappen fight and potentially the Bottas Perez fight.
this is the thing.
Bottas finished nearly 40 seconds behind the front two. Yes, he had the tire. Yes, he had the tire stuck in the pit lane, and then he pitted again to try and get the fastest lap. But he was still 18 seconds down the road before he did his second
Hmm.
pit stop to try and get the fastest lap.
Yeah, it has still been eight or
So
9 seconds behind.
yeah, it was quite a distance. So it's going to be interesting to see how he compares, because if he starts being a thorn in the side and actually being the driver that Red Bull need to be, I think it's going to be a good season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really close, and I think he's going to, they're both going to push Mercedes really hard. I mean, as you say, the thing is this time is that it's an inter-team battle, which
Hmm.
adds a completely different dimension to the fight because it's not as interesting when you've just got the one team and their drivers fighting for it, because there's going to be some sort of
Yeah,
orders or they've got to play nice, whatever else. We want to see the teams going at it because then there's no prisoners taken, and that's how you
yeah,
want
agree.
it. So I think this could be probably the first real battle we've had since like 2017, 2018.
Yeah,
I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good, and it's going to be just interesting to sort of see how it develops through the season, especially with the races coming up. Because apparently, Red Bull have still got they've actually got the straight line speed and advantage at the minute.
yeah, Honda have done good.
Very good. If only McLaren
So
had stuck with
with
them.
yeah. So with on that note, so with a Mercedes and Red Bull at the front, obviously speaking of McLaren, Norris came fourth, Ricardo came seventh. Not a bad start for them either to continue their form and try and keep third this year.
Yep, everything they've been reliable. They've been fast. We thought they were pretty quick. The qualifying pace didn't look as good as what we expected, but in the race they really did well. I mean, obviously Lando very racy, very 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 good. Um,
Hmm.
with the position that he finished as well, he did great. And Ricardo didn't feel he'd done great, but then they found that he had damage to the floor.
Hmm.
or damage to something. So he was losing time and not realizing that he was losing time. So he could have been right up there with Lando as well, had he not had that issue. But Lando needed to put a marker down. I mean, he's up against Ricardo, who's, he's won multiple races. He's classed as one of the big drivers, I would say.
Yeah.
So Lando, he's got this guy coming into the team who sort of really gets on with everybody, but he's also hyper competitive, very popular. He needed to put in a performance and show everybody that he can beat him. And he did that. He did that very well.
Yeah. No, no, I agree. I think Norris is kind of coming into his own a bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was good to see he had a solid. I think he put the statement out when he overtook Leclerc. Um, I think him and Ricardo are going to have some good fights this year. Um, but I definitely think that McLaren over race pace is definitely better at the moment than the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But it'll be
It's like,
interesting to see how that midfield. Yeah, Karen.
yeah, it's like you said as well, like with with how close the midfield is, you've got other drivers getting involved at the same time. So they're not
Yeah,
really they've not really got time to be fighting amongst themselves because it's just that close.
it's definitely
So
going to be it's going to be a good midfield one. I don't think McLaren are very far ahead. I do think it's McLaren, Ferrari, um, AlphaTauri. Uh, but yeah, I even put Aston Martin into the mix, and Alpine. Alpine with Alonso. I'm intrigued to see how Ocon carries on, but at the moment, McLaren look the best of the rest behind Red Bull and Mercedes. Again, it's only the first race of the season. It's not a bad drive from either driver, like you say, especially with Ricardo having the damage as well.
yeah. Yeah, I
If he
think
didn't have that damage,
yeah, he could have finished right up there with Lando, potentially.
yeah,
So, there's more in the tank there from McLaren, and I think they'll get Ricardo's going to get more comfortable with the car as well. It's like
hmm
Vettel going to Aston. Ricardo's also got to get used to McLaren and the power unit as well. So we've got quite a few drivers who have sort of they've got to get into it a little bit, settle in, and then we'll sort of see where they stand after that. But I'm sure
hmm
Ricardo's a quality driver as well. He'll make the most of the car, and it'll be just good to
yeah.
see
Like,
whether Lando can keep up with him or whether he can beat him.
we want to
I
watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be very good, and I kind of feel like people sort of think Lando's good, but he's not. Ricardo good. I think that's
Yeah,
how a lot. That seemed to be the feeling that I had sort of going into the season, that people just thought that Ricardo would just, you know,
roll
beat him
over.
beat him easily.
Yeah,
So I
steamroll
want
him.
to
Yeah,
see. Yeah, I want to see how that develops. I'm very interested in that. And same with Sainz and Leclerc.
yeah. I do think. The signs did say he was taking it steady. Didn't want to take any risks, which is fine because he wanted the track time to get used to the car, which is always
Yeah,
good. So yeah, finished eighth, which was good. Um, so moving on to AlphaTauri, obviously we had the dive bomb from Sonoda, which was good. It was
yeah,
good
he
to see.
did
It
a
was a
couple of those,
shame.
didn't he?
It did a few. Just a shame that they both had damage. Obviously, Gasly lost the wing at the start, the restart.
That was his mistake, though, wasn't it? I mean, it was. He
He
clipped
clipped the back of
clipped
Ricardo,
the
didn't he?
left rear. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ricardo. I'm surprised Ricardo didn't get a puncture from that. To be honest.
Mm.
But
So
yeah,
it's good to see that some pace in that car. Um, yeah, just quiet from them really. We'll have to wait and see what they can do in Imola's the next win, isn't it?
yeah.
And see what they can do there. And then you got Williams and Alfa Romeo that just had solid drives. And do you want to go into Hastel?
Well, I mean, what is there to say? What is there to
Give me
say? I
right
mean,
round,
they were
baby, right
just.
round.
Oh, I mean, I know, we never wish that drivers have crashes or incidents or whatever else, but a lot of people were quite happy to see Mazepin. That was the hashtag, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
A lot of people were happy to see him in the gravel. It just, but then obviously Mick had an issue as well. He went off. Was it a couple of laps later or a lap later or something
it was
like
a
that? I can't
restart.
remember. It was the
Yeah, it was,
restart. Yeah,
it was at the yeah, it was the restart.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, turn four at the restart.
It just looks like a horrible, horrible car to drive.
Mm. Yeah, it does look. Yeah, you got to feel sorry for throwing two rookies in a car that looks horrible, knowing that they even Haas have said they're not focusing on this year, they're looking at next year,
Yeah,
and you have to put up with that for the entire year.
yeah,
23 race calendar this year,
yeah.
longest calendar, and you know you've got to put up with a really bad car.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal, and it's got to be. It's got to destroy your motivation a little bit.
Okay, so throwing this in here, prediction for next race. Do you think a Haas will finish?
No,
Oh.
I'm going to
interested,
say no.
interested to
I'm
see
going to
what
say
happens.
no.
Okay, okay. I think one will finish.
Which one?
Well, I know the one I don't want to finish.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it felt. I don't know if retribution is the right word for when he went off.
hmm.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, it's just
Moving
disappointing
on.
because we know, as you say, they're not developing the car all year. I
Hmm.
feel I
Yeah,
feel sorry for Mick more than anything because I kind of feel like he should have been in the Alpha Romeo.
it was strange after watching Drive to Survive and then seeing him in the Haas. It
Yeah,
didn't make sense.
yeah, I kind of feel like if they wanted him to develop as a driver, the Alfa Romeo would have been perfect. You've got Kimi Raikkonen as your teammate who you can learn all sorts of things from.
I'm interested to see what they offered Schumacher to make him go to Haas, and unless they've got Giovinazzi bolted down in something.
Unless Ferrari just wanted Giovinazzi to stay there.
Maybe it just feels a bit. Well, technically, Haas is a Ferrari junior team as well now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit odd. It definitely is odd that he went to Haas and not to Alpha.
Yeah, it would have suited him
Yeah,
a lot better. But as you say, if
mm,
Giovinazzi's got a contract or something going on there that kept him, more in the running for that seat, then fair enough. But it's just a shame for Mick that he's got to put up with this Haas now. That's going to be
the rest of the
just
season. Yeah,
just terrible. I mean, it's like it's like Russell having the Williams a couple of years back. That was just dire. I mean, the Williams has been pretty dire anyway, but I think when he first jumped into it, it was really bad.
I think Do you think Latifi's gonna beat Russell this year, or do you think Russell's just gonna dominate Latifi again?
I don't see Latifi as being in the same class as Russell. I just don't.
Latifi's not impressed, really, has he? Is it?
No.
And I know I get what people say. I know Russell is a Mercedes driver, and I know he was given the chance in Hamilton's car. But if you take that aside, um, yeah, it's just it's very rare that you see Latifi ahead of Russell.
Well, I don't think
Just
Latifi
yeah,
outqualified him once last year, did he?
no, I don't think he did. So yeah, just
So
I'm intrigued to see
yeah, it's a tough
if
one.
he's going to stay next year, especially with the rumors going around of VW Group looking interested in getting involved.
Now that would be interesting. But I agree. I don't think Latifi will be in F1 next year. I just don't.
Interesting. So
Especially if you do get somebody like that come in that partners with the team
yeah,
or takes over, whatever. You're going to
whatever
see
goes on, yeah,
a bit of a change in driver lineup. I mean, I think Russell's going to go to Mercedes next year anyway.
yeah.
Um, Never know. See what happens, but yeah, I think they might have two new drivers in next year.
Should be interesting. Um, so addressing the elephant in the room, track limits. Thoughts? Where do we begin?
Well, I'd say we begin at the point where you know people were going out of bounds. What was it turn 4?
Yeah, yeah, it's turn four.
Yeah, turn 4. People going wide at turn 4, Hamilton in particular, using it, you know, and for some reason you couldn't use it during qualifying, but you were allowed to use it during the race. Is that right? I think it was right, but could be
I
wrong.
apparently they were told they weren't allowed to during the race either. But yeah, it's this issue starts for me years back, because track limits has always been a discussion that has always gone on, and over the past 2 or 3 seasons they keep changing from circuit to circuit where track limits are, where
I
every circuit has
personally,
got two. Yeah, every
yeah,
circuit's got two white lines
yeah,
painted either side of the road. That's the track. You can dip two wheels over if you need to use the curbs, etc. Not a problem. But if four wheels go over that white line, you're off the circuit.
yeah. So why
And having the white
this
lines
this is
otherwise.
the thing I don't understand why it's so difficult to enforce that.
I get safety. I get safety may play a part. I know they've changed one of the turns in Barcelona, in the Spanish circuit at Catalunya. They've changed which turn is it? They've changed the sweeping left hand. It used to be a tight left into the left
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
like the start of the last sector.
Yeah.
They've changed that for safety for MotoGP,
Yeah, just after just
because it
after
was
just
really
in
bad on
that
the bikes.
DRS zone, isn't it? Just after the DRS
Yeah,
zone.
it's
There,
literally.
yeah.
So I get them changing the track layout for safety reasons. So if that corner is a safety concern, why can't they adjust the corner? It's it's it just yeah, they just need to stop making the rules change from one track to another.
Just
They
tell them
just
they've got
need
to stay
to,
within the
yeah,
line.
stay within limits. And like the car,
Two
when they
wheels
were told they
over,
were able
and
to,
that's it.
mm, when it was
I
when it was cleared up, every car was able to do it without a problem. So I don't know why they were allowed to
But
do it in
this
the
is the
first
thing for
place.
me
It
is
just
that
doesn't make sense.
I could not get my head around the fact that for the majority of the race it was fine. Lewis did the
Yeah.
entire race. Multiple drivers did. And then they got to a point in the race where they were like, "Oh no, you can't use that anymore." Why are they
Apparently it's
changing
because
it
Red Bull
partway through a
compliant.
race? Oh, this is the thing, isn't it? If Red Bull had not complained, they'd have won.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
irony in
I don't
that.
think they would have. Yeah. I mean, what was it? I can't remember what article regulation it has, but yeah, that goes into passing. So I don't
But
think
this
they
is the
would
thing.
have.
If
I
you,
don't think they would
I
have
kind of
won.
feel like if you're going to allow cars to go,
Circuit
outside
like
track
that.
limits, why is it any
Yeah,
different? Why should it be any different for an overtake?
yeah, exactly.
If you're still using
Yeah,
the same bit of track, to me, it just seems odd, and for people watching,
yeah.
makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. Hopefully, we'll get some clarification moving forward that it's just white lines, two
It'd
wheels over the
be
white
good.
line. That's what happened in the old days.
Exactly.
Bring
That's
back
that's
bring back
literally how
gravel
it should
traps.
be. Why I don't I
All
don't
gravel
understand.
traps
I,
again.
I honestly do not understand why it is that difficult to have a set rule that works at every track, because you've got the white line there every track. The limits are there every track. It's quite clear.
That's
Just
why.
just stick
That's
with
why I
it.
like the old. Yeah, yeah. That's why I like the old school circuits. Track limits were track limits. If you
Yeah.
made a mistake, you were in a gravel trap and you were done. Not like the Temple of Tarmac in France.
And then it doesn't confuse the viewership and you don't get people complaining. I mean, that's all Twitter was straight after the race. Oh, well, Lewis only won because it was going outside track limits all race long, and then yeah,
It takes away from an awesome fight that the two had. The two of them had
literally,
an awesome on track fight, and it's all been marred by one bit of ruling.
yep, yep.
It's
And I
stupid.
it just that's the only downside to that race. That was the only downside to the
Mm.
race. If
Yep.
they just enforce these things properly, I, I I don't even know why it needs to be enforced. It should just be the standard.
It should be
It,
should
it,
be
it
common
shouldn't
sense.
exactly. Yeah, it should just be common sense that you have to stay on the track. No matter how much runoff there is, you know, it just boggles my mind that they can't
They
get to grips with it.
if they can't stick if they can't stick to track limits, they should bring in like the that old F1 All Stars game, like the Mario Kart
Oh
version.
man,
They should introduce the speed ramps if they can't stick to track limits.
we're gonna turn this into like a Mario Kart style thing.
Might as well. They can't keep to one rule. Just bring in a load of new ones. Mix it
It's
up a little
like
bit.
be like F1 online lobbies.
Yeah, why not? Crash Central.
Oh man.
So next race is at Imola. Thoughts on the
Mm.
track?
I mean the race that we had there last year, because it was one of the Grand Prix that we had put on in Italy, didn't we, last year?
Hmm.
It's very. It seemed like there wasn't much in the way of overtaking opportunities.
Hmm.
So, and it's high speed as well.
Yeah.
So, Red Bull are looking. They've got the best straight line speed. I know Mercedes were having an issue with. Can't remember what the word was now, but they were having some sort of issue with the clipping on the ERS, and they sort of
Oh,
lose.
were they?
Yeah, they weren't able to sort of deploy it as well as Red Bull.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can't remember the word now. It'll come to me at some point. But they're expecting that Red Bull are going to be in front of them, probably by
Yeah,
probably by just as much, if not more, than at
I definitely
Bahrain.
think it's going to suit Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a Red Bull focused circuit. This one. I do think it'd be interesting how McLaren do as well. I think with the sweeping corners that Imola has, with their funky diffuser, I think it
Yep.
will help them.
And Alpha
Yeah, I
Tauri as
definitely
well.
think. I think the big picture will show itself when we get to. I don't know. Portugal might show it. Portugal's more of a power track, but when we get to Spain again,
Yeah.
I think that obviously Spain's the more technical track. It'd be interesting to see how we go in Imola. I think yeah, I think I hope to see another good mid-race fight between Ferrari and Aston Martin. Hopefully, Alpine can sort themselves out, but I think they're more focusing on next year. I think they've got some
Yeah,
upgrades coming by the sound of things for this race, so that should be good.
I think
Um,
a lot of
but
the
yeah,
teams are going to be focusing for next year, aren't they? Um,
yeah,
but then
makes sense.
because you've got such a close fight, you know, you might have a few teams that sort of think, well, we need to fight this because of how close we actually
Yeah,
are. So
I think with the
I think Alpine and Aston that I sort of think they might bring a few updates, but then just leave
yep.
it just because they're that far off the sort of the front end of the midfield.
I think as well with the cost capping, I think the prize money is going to be more important than ever. So I think
Yeah.
anything the teams can do to get that bit of extra cash in, I think it'll definitely, I think if Williams can pick up an odd point here or there, I think they'll spend a bit of money updating the car for this year. Um,
Is it
yeah,
is it the new rules for the aero development where if you further but the further you
yeah,
are back on the grid, the more development time you get in the wind
yeah,
tunnel
this
and
year,
stuff. Yeah, it came in this year,
yeah,
didn't it? But
it's this.
obviously,
Year.
I'm thinking that some teams might think that that might be better used for next year.
I
So,
think
like,
I
if
think the percent,
say Alpine finish,
yeah,
you know, fifth, sixth, whatever,
yep.
um, they might instead of like pushing to try and beat another team, or they might just think, you know, we'll just take this one on chin, and because we think we've got a
Yeah,
really good car next year, what we'll do is we'll just have extra time in the wind tunnel.
yeah.
So I
The
kind of
I think
feel
the
like some
timings
teams
change.
might use that a little bit. I don't know if that's something that's still going to be used heavily for next year. I've not actually really looked at the regulations properly for next year in that respect, but
I think the timings. I think the timings in the wind tunnel change next year. The percentage amount,
right.
but it doesn't change too much. But yeah, you're right. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the smaller teams use the extra time in the
Yeah.
wind tunnel to kind of see if they can get that gain next year.
I think it's a big
Because
boost for
obviously you have to
Williams.
think like, well, it will just you have to think of Ferrari. Like Ferrari finished sixth last year, so
Hmm.
the fact they finished sixth means they get a large percentage more than Red Bull and Mercedes. So I wouldn't rule off Ferrari next year.
So I'm not sure how it works in terms of say like because Ferrari did quite badly last year and they get more
Hmm.
wind tunnel time this year.
Yeah,
Is that this year for this year's car or is it this year for next year's car?
this year to do what they want. I think.
Hmm.
Don't know. I don't know if
Even
it's for
more
this year
interesting.
or for next. Um, let me have a look. Um, so the aero testing. So let's have a quick look. It just says they can develop their racing car. Um, just makes it more sustainable, level playing field. Um,
I think it's good. It's
so
good for Williams. I think
introductions.
Williams will
Yeah.
Williams will be able to make use of that because they've got more money getting put in as well now. So hopefully they'll, with the new regulations, they'll actually hit the ground running. I'm hopeful anyway.
So um, sorry, Mercedes finished first last year, so they get 90% of the current aero testing allowed for this year. Next year they only get seven. Whoever's finishes first in the constructors gets 70.
Right.
So Ferrari finished sixth, so they get 12.5% more running time aero testing this year than Mercedes, and they get
Mm.
10% more running aero testing time than Red Bull. If this was next year, they'd be looking at 25%.
Wow.
Yeah, next year is the big. So next year, so for example, if Mercedes were to win this year, they would only get 70% aero testing allowed for 2022.
Yeah.
And Williams, if they finished, well, Haas, if they finished bottom, which way they look, they get 115%.
Wow.
So they get, yeah, they get 45% more time aero testing than Mercedes.
So for Haas, who are just going all in for next year,
They'll get so much more
they're going to get a lot more
aero
for that,
testing
aren't they?
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, for next year. Yeah,
It's an interesting. It is an
interesting
interesting
concept, isn't it?
change. Yeah. Yeah. I
Do
do
you think
think
it'll?
it might help.
Do you think it'll make the grid fluid, or do you still think there'll be an order
I think
with the
it's
cost
tricky
cap
because
and with the aero change?
whenever we get these big changes with the regulations, there usually ends up being one team that's miles ahead. Somebody pulls something out of the bag, and you get a team that's got quite a chunk of time over everybody else, and then it takes multiple seasons for everybody to sort of catch up, bunch up, whatever. So I'm just
Yeah,
worried that now that we've just hit a point where we've got two teams that are close, and we've got a bit of a fight on, that we're gonna go back to sort of how we were in 2014. Probably not as bad because, we've not got the issues with the power units like we had then, or we won't have.
it's
But
another team running away with it.
yeah,
Yeah,
you just don't know.
yeah.
But
No, it's definitely
I
gonna be
think it'll be
interesting.
interesting though. I think it's a big change. It's a change that needs to happen, especially if they're trying to make the
Hmm.
cars more able to follow closely and race better. I think it'd be good. I'm looking
Mm,
forward to it.
yeah, it'll be good.
So what do you? Shall we go on to our predictions for the race, the next Grand Prix?
Yeah.
Do you want to go
Would you like to go
first?
first?
I don't know if you want to do like a top three
Um,
or what do you reckon?
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to do top three. I'm happy to do top three.
I'll let you say yours first then.
Let me say my first. Ooh, I'm gonna go for Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez.
Okay. I am going for a Red Bull 1-2. And I'm going to go for
Nice.
Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton. So we've got the same top three,
Yeah,
just in slightly different order.
yeah, I think I'm just yeah. I would like to. I would like it to be a Red Bull 1-2. Just yeah. I I'm still yeah. We'll see this race what Perez can do. I still don't think he's fully tapped that Red Bull yet. And until he has, I think I still think there's a bit of a gap between him and Verstappen. So we'll see. I like to be proven wrong. So um, I hope he does a cracking job.
Well, uh, I think this race in particular, because of how difficult it was to overtake in the previous year, I think qualifying is going to be interesting. Qualifying sort of where it's at more so, and I think Verstappen's just quick in qualifying generally. He's usually on it. Hamilton's usually on it. I still think it'll be Verstappen, Hamilton in qualifying, and maybe Perez
Yeah,
behind him, because Perez is still trying to get used to things. But yeah, I'm hoping Perez can do more. I'm I've still got my fingers crossed for Perez winning the race. I want him to. I want Verstappen to have a real challenge in the team,
yeah,
just so he don't. If the car is that good, and we find out when we get to other tracks that actually the Red Bull is just way superior to the Mercedes, I want him to have a battle with somebody. But
we shall
I think
see.
Lewis will still be up there anyway. It's for most races.
Can't count them out, can you?
No, you really can't.
But we'll see. We'll see at the next race.
We will indeed. I think we've just about covered everything. would you say? I mean, 3 week gap to the race. Not ideal. I've not been happy about this. We are a little bit late in recording this episode, but we had to fill those 3 weeks somehow. So we thought we may as well just do it a little bit later and not leave everybody waiting even longer for content afterwards. But yeah, I think have we? How many races have we got in a row after this? Is it just 2?
I think it's 2.
Yeah. So we'll have
Don't have my.
we'll have more podcast episodes going up in quick succession soon because we've got it's a very busy season. As we said, there's 23 races. We've got a lot to cover. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the next race pans out. You having a quick look on the old app?
So we have. I am having a quick look. So we have obviously we have Imola coming up next weekend. It's a 2-week break until Portugal, and then we have a back-to-back with Portugal and Spain. So Portugal is on the 2nd. The race is on the 2nd, and then we have the following week in Spain on the 9th. So
Sweet.
yeah, so it's Imola, then a 2-week gap, and then we have a back-to-back with Portugal and Spain, and then Monaco at the end of May.
Brill.
Well, 23rd.
I just want to get more into it now. One race is just not enough, and we had a 3-week gap. It's been so painful. It's just been so painful. I think everybody else has been like that on Twitter, just complaining and just be like, "Oh my god, like 3 weeks, really?"
You
Horrible.
have to remember as well, was like the season goes through now until the 12th of December.
That's mental, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's a long season. So yeah, we'll be here giving our thoughts and opinions and being proven wrong. I hope.
I'm pretty sure we will be. We usually are. But yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. Ash, if you want to let everybody know where they can find you on social media and the like.
You can find me on Twitter at Barky Gaming.
And you can find me, guys, on Twitter at AirGuysGT and also on YouTube, AirGuys Gaming. But thank you very much for listening. We'll be back after the next race at Imola. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Okay.